Da, da, da. Yeah, you know the good evening and welcome to Merriwether's World. I am chilling 5 minutes before the show starts, so I am just hanging out. Thought I'd start early, see if anyone showed up early. Hey, there's someone here. Hello, someone here. That or the Eye of Sauron has invaded my computer. I'm going to try something. No, I'm not, because it could actually screw everything up. So I'm not going to try something. I'm just going to hang out and wait. So, yeah, 4 more minutes, and then we will start episode 74 of Merriwether's World. Plum Crazy, exploring the world of plums. Hey, we got people. Hey, Uncommon Bees. How you doing? Hey, let's let me do something because... Hey, Michelle. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Oh, there we are. Okay. Hey, Alan. Hey, Deborah. Hey, Kimberly. Like I said, I'm just hanging out. Uncommon Bees is here. Thought I'd do a shout out to them. I'll do more here. Wow, picking peppervine berries as I listen. Cool. Hey, Sherry. Hey, Tammy. Like I said, hanging out. I figured I'd start a few minutes early just to let people gather, get comfy, crack open a beer, whatever. Originally, I was thinking of swinging by Specs or one of the other liquor stores and picking up some plum brandy for tonight's episode, but decided, well, A, that would cost money, and I don't have that right now, and B, that would use up time, which I don't have right now, and C, there wasn't really a C. I was going to say getting drunk during one of these is a bad idea, but you'll know that's not necessarily the case. Wow. Hey, Sherry. Hey, Tammy. Hey, Carrie. Hey, Jonathan. Hey, MT Brent. How you doing? Hey, Joe. Okay, I know I'm supposed to remember who this is, but I'm sorry, I'm not remembering who that is. Is it Michael? Oh, well. Hey, glad you liked it. Like I said, I was pretty sure it would fit and it wouldn't take up too much room in your closet or wherever it ended up being. Hey, Andrew. Hey, Maja? Maja? I hope I have no idea if you're spelling or if I'm pronouncing that. Maja? Well, I'm going to wave back at you. Okay. We drinking tonight? Well, I'm just having a beer. It's been one of those days, so and what's the word? This is an unsponsored beer, so it's like I'm drinking it because I like the flavor, not because they pay me to drink it or anything like that. Hey, Mike. Hey, Gary. How are the goats today? I said it right the last time. Now I have to go through and figure out which one. I'll have to go back and look at the recording now. Okay. See, with the last name, my last name is Vorderbruggen. And so I don't feel bad about mispronouncing people's names. Hey, Mark. Just up there at College Station. Cool. Oh, 1 more minute. All right. Okay. Do I got that? I got that. Cool. All right. I'm starting in less than a minute. I have to let the family know. Actually, the only one here right now is Minnie Weather. Mrs. Weather and Mambo Weather are out at dance. Whoa, Maria, cool. If you're sipping low-cot liquor tonight, you are really going to like tonight's show because I got something new for you. Yeah, the Carbach, it's hard to go wrong with the Texas, Houston brewery. Oh man, that's good. Yeah. If we get the hurricanes, the tropical depressions here this weekend, that will be great then for the classes up at Uncommon Bees. Cool. All right. It is 8 o'clock. Time for the theme music. Ah. Dun 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 dun. Insert theme music here. Insert theme music. Sorry. Hi, Dad. Hi, Mom. They showed up and it completely screwed up my ability to do my theme music, but that's okay. All right, so good evening and welcome to Merriwether's World. I am your host, Dr. Mark Merriwether Vorderbrücken, broadcasting live from the intersection of the dining room and this weird little sitting room thing that we have here. Cool. Those of you who don't know me, among other things, I am the author of Idiot's Guide Foraging. Worked with Wazoo Survival to come up with this cool foraging bandana. 12 of the most useful edible medicinal plants in North America. I am, well, let me do this here. I am the medicine man of Medicine Man Plant Company, with a whole bunch of products out. And by a whole bunch, I mean 3. But today is the day to order the immune pill. So the mixture of elderberry, echinacea, self-heal, and cordyceps, plus a little bit of vitamin C to help do what your immune system is designed to do. So you can get that here on the Foraging Texas website over under the Medicine Man link here. But of course, if you click on that, it will take you to Amazon. And that's where we want you to purchase it from. So cool. All right. Thinking here. Let's as usual, I like to start off with just a shout out to my sponsors, because they are the ones that keep all this going. They're the ones that make me feel guilty and obligated to be here every Thursday now. But I love them for that. So, of course, Uncommon Bees. Oops. The maker of fine bee. There we go. Click. Okay. Maker of fine bee type things. They've just redone their website. So, come on. So, they have all sorts of different types of beeswax and propolis and honey and different ways of getting honey, and a ton of absolutely amazing infused honey. And where is the one they shared with me recently? It was the multi-mushroom. Nope. So they got the lion's mane and the reishi and the turkey tail and the chaga, but maybe it's a very special one. Oh, the shiitake. Anyway, great people. Let me put up the link. Where is, all right. I'm working with, excuse me, a good monitor and a not so good monitor. So if you just bear with me. Okay, so here is the link and coupon code for Uncommon Bees between now and midnight tonight, Central Daylight Time here in Texas. You will get a, what is it? 25% off. Wow. Man, did I type that right? Okay. Yeah, 25% off. And why did that not go up? I miss having Merriwether here. Come on, you can do this. Why is that? We got the spinny beach ball of doom. Okay, here we go. All right, there we go. So here is the link to Uncommon Bees. Yeah, Sacred 7 is the super dupe. There it is. So the Sacred 7 infused is made from 7 of the most historically revered mushrooms. So very cool there. So shout out to them. And of course, another big shout out is Campcraft Outdoors, maker of nice, durable camp gear, especially packs and satchels and haversacks. These are all made from nice weight canvas, hand waxed to make them waterproof, all made here in the USA. So not only do they have assorted bags, they also have assorted tools that they have made just for them, some knife makers and some other things like that. So if you are into bushcraft or spend a lot of time outdoors off trails, oh, say foraging perhaps, these are the people you want to talk to for gear. So again, let me put up their info. And with them, they have a 15% off coupon that is good anytime. And that is just the foraging weeds. Okay. Next up, special shout out to Wazoo Survival. Like I said, they are the co-creator. They're the ones that came to me and said, "Hey, let's make this, foraging bandana." Me and Dr. Nicole Appelian from TV's Alone, which I think the final episode of season 7 is tonight. Anyway, so they are the place you go to for, again, outdoor survival gear. And of particular importance is they are the ones, let me put this up here. They're the ones that pay for the StreamYard account that allows me to broadcast. Okay, so be patient, be patient. We have just a few more. Of course, I have Medicine Man Plant Company, but there is also herbs. All right. Yep, I'm live. Okay, herbs. And they are the place I go to for bulk herbs and special blends. They recently made me this pokeweed root salve. I know people are going to freak out, but it's just a small amount to help with a cyst I was having. I was having a bad drainage, and so it's helping there. Did this go up? All right. What to do? So, and then if you use Forking Weeds with them, they also have the 15% discount between now and midnight. All right, and then another is the Arbor True, and these people are amazing. If you are looking to have some trees trimmed, pruned, or rendered disease-free if possible, they are the company to do it. And they are located, their headquarters are in Kingwood, Texas, on the north side, north kind of east side of Houston, but they travel all over, not even just in Texas, but they go to California. They were called in after all the big fires that went through last year in California. I'm assuming they're going to be called in again this year to take care of a lot of treasured trees. So along with the tree pruning and all this, like I said, they can inspect for diseases and figure out, do you have some sort of fungus or boring beetle or something like that? And they know how to treat it. They're really some of the best in the business. And right now, any lawn or any tree service you do, they will also come through and spray out this really amazing, we're going to call it a fertilizer for whatever garden or plants or whatever you want. And by fertilizer, what it is actually a particular type of bacteria that fixes nitrogen. So nitrogen gas in the air floats around, nothing can use it until this certain type of bacteria can get it and break it and make it into nitrates, which then is the nitrogen fertilizer for the soil that plants, everything wants. So these bacteria will graft onto the roots of the your bushes, your plants, all this, perfectly food safe, non-infectious. There's bazillions of different types of bacteria out there. Humans only have to worry about a few of them. This is not one of them, but they will come in and it will turn your plants into self-fertilizing plants, which is pretty awesome. Okay. Did I put theirs up? Okay, and I see a number of questions. Okay, oops, Sandra. So are codes listed or are all foraging weeds? So the codes are listed as I put it up. Most of them are forking weeds. The secret foraging Texas greeting, forking weeds. Some of them are foraging Texas. So, okay. Oh, and then finally, let's see. Well, not finally, but another really important one for those of you that are playing away along at home. Don't forget Fear and Dread. Right now, they sent 2 of these patrol. Let me just pop over here. So 2 of these individual patrol officer vacuum packed first aid kits. They have the tourniquet and the gauze and the gloves and all the things you need for a severe trauma type wound. And so they gave me 2 to give away to make it even sweeter. So there'll be 2 of these to give away, and I will include one of the bandanas also. And if you go to the Foraging Texas Facebook page, which you are right now, and scroll down, and you will see actually scroll up because I have it pinned to the top. If you share that particular post where I'm talking about, I'm giving away the item from Fear and Dread and from Wazoo Survival, you get entered in the drawing. So that's good too. All right. And let's see. Oh yeah, they do have a coupon code. Hold on a second here. There it is. So, and for that, the coupon code is Merriwether. And that's 5% off $100 or $100 or more. So cool them. All right. Oh, and of course, the big thing is upcoming classes now with the cool weather coming. And here's the link. Upcoming classes. There's a bunch of classes coming up. September 5th, they'll be out in Jasper at Uncommon Bees. September 12th, supposed to be at Spoke Hollow Outfitters in Austin. We're still working out the details on that. Then September 13th, I'm doing multiple plant walks at Vista Brewing, also in Austin. October 3rd, again, out to East Texas for Cato Mounds. October 10th, again, Spoke Hollow. October 12th, Vista Brewing, and many, many more. The Houston area, unfortunately, it's still pretty much shut down for classes. So it's East Texas and the Austin area. Okay. So that is the general housekeeping. You can now turn back. Hey, Brendan. All right, let me just check, see if there's any questions. Ooh, this is okay, I gotta, HVAL for digestive issues. I'm gonna answer that via message because it's always difficult. If I don't know the full story, I really can't make a recommendation. So I have some thoughts of what might help, but without a lot more details, I'm not going to make a suggestion. So we'll talk more. Okay. So now, oops, what's going on here? Okay. Ooh, another order. Yeah. So the goal today with Medicine Man Plant Company was 60 orders of the immune pill, and right now we are at 40 what? Stop that. Yeah, 40 something. Oh, I have it on airplane mode. No, I don't. This is weird. Okay, I'm back. Plums. Plums are an amazing fruit, but they're also tricky. And in the wild plum area, they can be somewhat confusing because there's, depending on what part of Texas you're in, you may have one or the other or potentially both. And I've seen big arguments break out online in my comment sections. People saying that, different things about the plums that are appropriate for their plums, but don't apply to the other plums. And people don't realize there's different types of plums. So I decided tonight, let's talk about plums. So I'm going to start with domestic plums because they are wonderful. They're small trees. They produce well. But there's some tricks you need to know if you actually plan on growing plums for fruit. And so I'll walk through those to help you with that. So you can maximize your production with the minimum amount of labor and area. And then we'll talk about the wild plums. All right. Well, okay. So stop that. Bad monitor. All right. So with domestic plums, there are basically, excuse me, people are ordering. Cool. Yay. Thank you. Okay. There are 3 varieties or 3 types of plums that are available. There are and I need to make sure here, the European, the Japanese, and then American hybrids. So European, Japanese, and American hybrids. The European plums are the ones that are recommended for most of North America, the hardy European, and I will give some varieties in a bit. But when you're at a nursery or at a, even Home Depot or one of those places, someone's selling plum trees, you want to scan through and hopefully they will say if it is a European, a Japanese, or an American hybrid. Usually they will, I've never seen a Japanese plum that was not labeled Japanese plum. So something to see there. I've seen some varieties of European and some varieties of American that were not labeled European or American. But the nice thing about this is whereas the European are considered, fairly appropriate all across the North America until you get up into the Arctic regions, the Japanese plums are actually the ones that are best suited for the higher Texas temperatures. So when you are looking at, the different plum varieties at the nursery, at the local nursery, you probably want to look at the Japanese plums as being the ones that are going to have the most likelihood of success in a Texas yard. So now the American hybrids, they're actually considered the hardiest and most disease-free and most trouble-free, but in doing so, you do give up some of the overall fruiting ability. So the American hybrids, good ornamental tree, great smelling flowers and stuff, but not always the best fruit. So for the Texas area, for those of you watching from outside of Texas, mom and dad, if you decide to go with the plum tree again, get a European. But those of you here in Texas, you want to go look for one of the Japanese varieties. Okay. So now you kind of have an idea of, European, Japanese, or American. Well, it's a little more complicated than that. So whereas the European plum trees are generally considered self-fertile, that means one tree can pollinate itself and produce fruit. The Japanese and the American hybrids generally need another tree around. So another plum tree around to fertilize them. So, like I said, in Texas, you want the Japanese plum, but you're going to need at least 2 of them, and ideally 3 of them to get the most genetic diversity to increase the genetic diversity and the overall chance of getting pollinated. If you just have a small suburban lot, go with 2 plum trees, have them close by. If you have a larger piece of land, like half acre or quarter acre or bigger, then you can go with 3, have 2 fairly close, and then kind of a third off a little bit. The reason for setting the third off a little bit is to reduce some chances of disease and fungus and stuff being transferred around between them. But Japanese and the American hybrids generally need at least 2 plum trees to be fertile or to produce fruit, to set fruit. The issue, though, is if you just go to a nursery and you'll see all these variety of plums, and people will go, let's see here. I want a methanol and a Santa Rosa, and yay, these will be great. And then you discover that the one plum tree, one variety blooms, say the 2 weeks in May, and then the flowers fall off. And then in early or mid-June, the other plum tree puts out its flowers, and they fall off, and you never have them flowering at the same time. So you want to make sure that you get the same variety so that they both flower at the same time, and then they can transfer pollen back and forth between the 2. You want to make sure, and hopefully the tag or someone at the nursery can tell you if you're looking at 2 different varieties when they will flower, so you will have them flowering at the same time. Ooh. Let me just, so can anyone recommend a thorough book guide for foraging in Texas? Brett, go to www.foragingtexas.com. That is my website. There's over 200 plants on there. And there's also links to my book, Idiot's Guide Foraging. And even though the book covers all of North America, the plants in it are all found in are all found in Texas, as well as the rest of North America, because they weren't going to fly me everywhere when I wrote the book, the publishers. So I had to get all the photographs and stuff around Texas and go from there. Okay, so let's talk varieties, especially there are several that are considered really good ones for Texas. All right, come on, let's see. Okay, come on, you. Why is this not highlighting? Okay, so the first one is Methley, and it ripens from mid-May to mid-June. The fruit is small. If you're familiar with the wild plum, the wild plums are very small. This fruit is a little bit bigger, kind of like the size of a lime, not quite a lime, a small lime, like one of the green limes. It does really well in Texas. You do need 2 of them. The issue is the fruit itself that it produces is quite soft and gets mushy really well. And once you pluck it off the tree, you pretty much have to eat it because it doesn't store well. So if you just want a nice munching plum that does really well in Texas, go with the Methley. Now, the ones I've always been a fan of, come on, is the Santa Rosa. So this one, when you think of a store-bought plum, one of the nice big plums, the Santa Rosa is the one that's going to be the most similar to that. So when you're in the grocery store and you're buying the big plums because you love the big plums, get a Santa Rosa. That will be the one that gives you the closest to the whole store-bought type plum. All right, Colleen, that's a good question. The I'm trying to think if Buchanan's in the Heights carries them. The Arborgate Nursery in Tomball usually does, but you want to call ahead. I will tell you right now, nurseries this summer have been really weird about what they've have been able to get in. A lot of the local nurseries either have their own greenhouses or they contract with local greenhouses to grow trees and fruit and plants for them. And that whole system has been kind of screwed up by the coronavirus. But try Moss Nursery if you're down by the Kemah area. Try Buchanan's in the Heights, and then the Arborgate Nursery out in Tomball. Of the three, I've always been a big fan of the Arborgate in Tomball. They've always done right by me, so I like them. Okay. Now, another good one is Bruce. And what's nice about Bruce is it has a long blooming period. Whoop, family's home. Hello. Hi. So the Bruce, it's another one of the larger plums. So it has, like the store-bought plum size. It is definitely not self-fertile. But what is nice about Bruce, are we missing a kid? No. Okay. Is that it can be pollinated by the methley, the first one I talked about. So the methley will pollinate the Bruce and result in really nice, big, delicious fruit. And what's really good then is you can put a second methley there too. And so you'll get methley pears and you'll get plums, the methley plums and the Bruce plums. So very, very, very good. All right, the next one. And this one is more for the North Texas people. So if you're up where it actually gets cold, the Morris. So the problem with the Morris is it requires a lot of chill hours. And frankly, you're not going to get those in most parts of Texas. So maybe if you're up halfway up the side of a mountain or way up in northern Texas, you might be able to get the Morris to produce fruit, but generally not. And so you do need some other variety. One of the nice things is online, there are a lot of nurseries that post this will pollinate that list. So it will, basically a grid where, these plums will pollinate certain plums, they have all the plums listed 2 angles and have X's, which plums will bloom and therefore pollinate other types of plums. Ooh, Jane, yeah, pretty much all over. There was in Corsicana, there's a number of farmers' fields that have huge thickets of Chickasaw plums. So when we get to the wild plum part, I'll talk about that and how to help you identify it and what to look for so you can go and knock on someone's door and say, hey, can I have some of your Chickasaw plums? Okay. There is one last one that does well here in Texas in general, and that is the Ozark Premier. And what this is a cross between a methley and also a plum known as a Burbank. So this is one of the American hybrids. Big plum, yellow flesh, ripens in late June. And so it's a good summertime fruit. But you do need things around. So usually you will use another methley as the pollinator. Whew. Okay, I had a book. Oh well. Okay. So those are some of the recommended varieties that do well in Texas. Like I said, the Morris is going to be more for areas where you get a lot of cold weather. So like I said, kind of if you have some property up in the Davis Mountains or North Texas, something like that, where you actually get some cold weather, that'd be good. But everywhere else, the Methley and the Santa Rosa and the Bruce, and of course the Ozark Premier are good choices. Okay, the other thing you need to know about the plum trees then, if you decided, okay, you know which one you're going to grow or which two, where do you plant it and what do you do for the soil? So let's talk about that quick. But first, let's see, any other questions? Not really. Hey, Derek, how you doing? I recognize you. All right. Sorry, someone's printing something. Okay, so selecting a planting site. If you want to plant plums and get a good crop, you need rich, loamy soil. So ideally something well drained and rich. So if you're up in the Austin area and you got the limestone, you're going to have to really amend the soil. If you're out more West Texas, Caliche, really what you want is rich soil. But you also want it well drained. So this is where raised beds come into play. So you can make a big mound of dirt and grow the plum trees in that, and they do pretty well. Because remember, the plum trees, they're not huge trees, especially if you prune them to keep small. Okay, they do not like heavy clay soils that stay mucky and wet and clay. They do not want their roots constantly wet. That will cause their roots to just rot away. So again, it's another reason why to kind of lift them up on their own separate little mound to allow the water to drain off the roots. And by little, I mean like, at least a foot, 2 feet tall would be better. So mound of, probably, well, the basic plum trees, if you prune them, they'll get maybe 8 feet wide. So that mound, it doesn't have to be 2 feet deep for an 8-foot diameter circle, but out at the edges, it should still probably be at least 10 inches. So 2 feet in the center where the main trunk is, and then down to about 10 inches out from there, out 4.5 feet or so in either direction from the trunk. As you want to make sure what's called the drip line, the roots, the feeder roots that are getting the water that drips off the leaves at the edge of the tree, still have plenty of rich, loamy soil. Does that make sense? Hopefully it makes sense. Okay, full sun. If you have anything less than like 8 hours of full sun, the plums aren't going to do well. They are a full sun sort of plant. Like with a lot of fruit trees, you really, the more sun they get, the better the fruit produces. They are doing a lot of chemical processes. The plum trees, they're taking the carbon dioxide and using the sunlight to break it apart and recombine it in all sorts of different ways to make the leaves and the fruit. So it needs a lot of sunlight to power the chemistry that goes into growing the fruit big. And of course, at the same time, you will have to keep an eye to make sure it has the water it needs too. You don't want the roots to be sopping wet. It doesn't like to be standing in water, but you do need to keep an eye on them to make sure they're getting the right amount of water. If you see the leaves starting to droop, you definitely need to get a water. Ideally, watering early morning so that the water can soak in, but then all the water will be pretty much off the leaves before the sun comes up, because I mentioned before, the drops of water work like little magnifying glasses and can actually cause little burns on the leaves. You'll end up sunburning the plants if you water them while the sun is shining hard. Okay, don't plant them in low areas, except for maybe the Morris, because you don't want them to be hit by late season frosts. So you want to have them kind of raised up that way. Remember, cool air sinks. So if you have a low spot in your property, the air there is going to be somewhat colder than the air up higher around it. simple physics. Plums don't like that weird cold air suddenly coming in on them. They're kind of the whole plum fruit thing is due to hundreds, if not thousands of years of selective breeding. It's not like when we get to the wild plums, you'll see where the plums came from. But because they've been so selectively bred, they don't like the wild conditions very much, and so it can damage them. Now, the wild plums, they'll take it just fine, but the domestic plums, they like a very steady temperature. So Amber has a great question. Can they be planted in a big box planter? Really big one, or you do a lot of pruning. The main issue, because most of the big box planters I've seen might be 4 feet across for a really big one. And that's not really enough space for the roots. And eventually the tree will become root bound, which will then basically kill it. So if you have a cheap source of a plum tree and a place to try it, go ahead and try it. Pruning it will help. And if possible, I just had another really great idea for an invention. If you can have a box where sides can swing open, and you can kind of trim the roots some so they're not strangling each other, so you can kind of prune the roots, for lack of a better saying, will help keep the roots from them strangling themselves, and you'll probably get better results from the tree. So that's just kind of a scientific wild ass guess there, a swag. But yeah, you can try it in a large planter, but my concern is the roots will eventually strangle it. Even if you prune the tree, the roots will keep growing. Oops. Okay, we'll get back. Okay, yes, Andrew, I'll get more into that when we're talking about wild plums, but in case we don't, yes, if you want a plum tree and all you have is shade, you will want a wild Mexican plum, not the Chickasaw plum. The Chickasaw need full sun, but we'll talk about that soon. Okay, okay, so back to the whole domestic sort of thing, and the plants liking a kind of a constant temperature. They don't like wind. So the plums, you also want to put them in somewhat sheltered area. So like on a south or west facing wall. And that just reduces some of the wind that comes through them. They don't like the wind. So rich soil, not clay, not caliche, not limestone, but rich, black, loamy soil, good drainage. So on a raised bed of some sort, if you can, full sun, at least 8 hours of sun. Keep an eye on the water in the early mornings to avoid burning the leaves. If you water in the late evening, like, just before going to bed, then that moisture will stay on there and cause fungus to grow, which is equally bad. Don't plant it in low pockets where cold air will collect in the spring. They like a nice steady temperature, and so also for that reason, you want to plant them on next to a south wall or a west wall that will offer them some protection. So that is the main, which domestic plums to get and where to plant them. Okay, now for something really interesting. And let me get this here. What do you do with the plums? So, of course, you can eat the plum. A warning, the wild plums, the Mexicana wild plums, usually are tart. The Chickasaw plums are very tasty. But one thing you can do with the stones of any of them, so the pit, the hard, ridgy pit from regular domesticated plums or wild plums, is crush them together and make a stone fruit liqueur. So I really don't have a good way of describing the flavor because it kind of varies from plum to plum. But to do it, you take the the pit from the plum, crush it up. You want about 1 cup of crushed plum pits. Mix it with 2 cups of Everclear, the grain alcohol, the 190 proof. So you want to mix it with Everclear. Let it soak for a good 6 weeks, shaking it every day. So 1 cup crushed stone fruits, 2 cups Everclear. Shake it up. Then strain it out after 6 weeks or so, after the flavors have infused into the Everclear. Now you want to add about 2/3 cup of sugar. So you're going to sweeten it up. You're going to add 1/2 cup of water. And then also throw a whole cinnamon stick in there in the bottle. And let that sit for a while. Shake it, get the sugar to dissolve into the water and into the Everclear. Let the cinnamon diffuse into it. And this will be a really good, sweet aperitif.
Aperitif.
What?
Aperitif.
Aperitif? Okay. Mrs. Weather speaks French. I don't.
No, she doesn't.
You speak more French than I do. And if you know how much Spanish I speak even less French. Okay. So with that, you have a nice after supper cordial. Yeah, we'll call it a cordial. So a nice sweet drink for sipping on, just a little bit, like a dessert cordial sort of thing. You can also use it in assorted cocktails. So because once you add the 2/3 cup sugar to it, even though it already has 2 cups grain alcohol and 1 cup water, it's still going to be very sweet. Brendan, yes. So when anyone ever asks me for plum recipes, I send them, and I should have had the link up. But the German plum spread. Let me get a link for that here. Where is that? Okay, there it is. Yes. So, come on. Why are you not? There we go. Okay, we'll just bring it up. Okay. Yes. So the plum jam, German plum jam, and basically it just involves mashing up the plums. I know people are very proud of their stuff, but yeah. So if you have a crock pot or something like that, where you can just let it sit and simmer overnight or for many hours, you put up the mashed the mashed plums and some sugar, some cinnamon, some water, and a little bit of apple cider vinegar, and let it simmer and cook for a while. And it turns into a rich goo, if you will, but pretty tasty. Okay. Let me just. How are we doing on time? Oh, crap. Okay, so we got 15 minutes yet. So let me now jump into the wild plums. And let me do this. So on Foraging Texas, if you scroll down, it's alphabetical. So the wild plum, let's talk about that one first. So that is the Prunus mexicana. And can I zoom this in a little more? There we go. Okay. So Prunus mexicana. This is if we scrolled quickly down to the map, remember I have the map of Texas and the North American map. You will find these kind of in the East Texas area and then in the northeast part of Texas. These are understory trees, so they prefer they won't be out in full sun. They really don't like being out in full sun. They want to be protected by other trees. So you'll look for them in the woods, at the very least on the border of woods. But the fruit they produce is small. I mean, this is a ripe one here, and it's really not much bigger across than my finger, and usually extremely tart. The outer surface, that gray color there, is a wild yeast, which is good because rather than just eating the fruit, it's nice to mash them up and just let them self-ferment into kind of a tart plum alcoholic drink that you then mix with other juices and so forth and other wines to make the flavor better. Excuse me. The bark of the tree is somewhat scaly. Oops, over here. So I talked about the key features of the wild Mexican plum is it is scaly, it likes shade, and the mature bark is smooth. So the lower bark, I don't know how well you can see it here, it starts to peel and is scaly, but if you follow it to the end new branches, and I guess I really don't have a good picture. Well, yeah, here. If I can zoom in even more. The upper branches are smooth. The leaves are almost leathery. They're not huge, but they're fairly tough. They are alternating down the stem, and they're slightly fuzzy. All right, I need to keep an eye on here. All right. Wait a minute. Did I lose? Oh, okay. Never mind. I had to check my notes here. Okay. They are just starting to be on the very edge of thinking about ripening now. Again, the wild plums. Really, it's going to be late September into mid-October is when the wild plums, Prunus mexicana, are ripe. Like I said, the fruit is very tart, but that tartness does help when you make a jam out of it, like the German jam, plum jam that I put the link to a few minutes ago. So good there. And then, of course, the pit can be crushed up and made into the cordial, the sweet, syrupy, high alcohol concentration liqueur from it. So, all right, let me see here. Any questions? Okay, cool. You have them in Comanche and Anderson County as well. Cool. All right, so that's what's traditionally known as the wild plum, the Prunus mexicana, but also here in Texas. Scrolling back down, plums. Oops. Okay, there we go. Okay, we also have the Chickasaw, and this is the Prunus augustifolia, and so this is another plum tree. And I'm going to jump down to the map here. You will see it's somewhat in the East Texas area, but then a lot more prevalent up here in the northern part of Texas. But you do get some around the Dallas area. That's where I first encountered it, just south of Dallas. But then I've seen it other places too. Now, the main differences between the Chickasaw plum and the Mexican plum or the wild plum. One, the fruit, it ripens in July. So, 4th of July is when you want to be out looking for the fruit of the Chickasaw plums. The trees of the Chickasaw plums, they grow in thickets. So this is just a bunch of trees. They're barely trees. They're more like really large bushes. And they grow both from seed They'll drop seed, and there's a good chance that seed grows, but they also grow from runners, so underground. And so they'll just form this thick mass that's really hard to get through because they have these thorns on the branches too. So a thicket with the branches covered in thorns. The branches themselves are going to be a reddish or slightly purple in color, as opposed to the gray color of the wild plum, the Mexicana plum. And then the bark is somewhat peeling as it matures, but it doesn't really get the big, scaly alligator skin because the trunks themselves don't get big. A big Chickasaw plum trunk, might be 4 or 5 inches across, because, like I said, they're more of a large bush than a small tree. The fruit, when they're ripe, there'll be this lovely kind of red purple color. Let me zoom in a little bit more. Is this going to work? Maybe not. Okay. Or if I do this. Okay. So the fruit, when it's ripe, 4th of July, think red, white, and blue. You got the nice reddish fruit going on there. As far as a source of wild yeast, being a plum and being a hardy skin fruit, it's going to have some on there, but I haven't seen the yeast as thick on the Chickasaw plums as I have on the wild plums. So for identifying thorns, thickets, and thunny, and that's just me being funny, but the Chickasaw plums, they are a full sun sort of plant. So these thickets, they like to be growing out in an open field, not shaded by other plants. So they want, the whole 8, 10, 12 hours of sunlight or more that they can get during the summer. So look for them in big sunny fields. Like I said, you'll be driving along and you'll just see this weird thicket and an old abandoned field. The fruit, it'll be about the size of my thumb. So in July, you might actually be able to see the red fruit. And I'll tell you, a lot of farmers are okay with you picking the plums. A lot of times they say, well, okay, go pick a few gallons for yourself and give me a pint or 2 pints of it. So they'll just, rely on you for labor to get them plums so they don't have to. But keep an eye on them, looking for them. Like I said, in the map here, kind of the more central and open areas of Texas. So away from the woods in the open fields is where you will find them. Now, along with the flesh, and the flesh is really good eating just ripe off the tree. You can make the jam, jelly, wine, distill it into brandy, that sort of thing. But with the Chickasaw, the flesh itself is really good. And then the pit of the Chickasaw was actually crushed and boiled into a porridge by the one Native Americans. Oh, just in general. So, yeah, so the Native Americans here, at least in Texas, would actually eat the crushed pits of the Chickasaw plums after crushing them and boiling them to, like I said, boil it into a porridge. So it's probably going to still be a little gritty because even the Chickasaw plums, they have, the pit is kind of hard. It's not as bad as the Mexicana, but the Chickasaw plum, the pit crushed up, boiled into kind of a malto meal, high protein sort of thing. Okay. Okay, Terrace. So they're thick in Anderson and Cherokee County. It seems like they ripen as early June. That's interesting. Can you, Terrace, send me pictures next spring? Because I would like to expand the information. I found up in the Dallas area, a bit north of you, they're going to be more in the July. But if there's that much of a difference, just a few hours difference distance-wise, that's really cool. I've planted the Chickasaw plums in my backyard here. They are somewhat slow growing at first until they actually produce fruit, and then they start springing up everywhere. But even after like 7 years, I don't have fruit on them. Part of the reason is one of the other fruit trees. Thank you, Terrence. One of the other fruit trees, my Satsuma orange, has gotten so big that it started to cast shade on my Chickasaw. So I'm kind of bummed about that. Ooh, okay. What color are their flowers in the spring? So both the Chickasaw and the wild plums will have the white flowers. And let me bring up a picture. Actually, let me plum. Okay. So they're going to be the 5-petaled stone fruit. It looks like a peach. Peach and plums are kind of related. But yeah, the very standard flower, but they're going to be white. All right, Mike, you're saying you don't recall seeing them? Take a look around. Like I said, they'll form a big thicket, but not a very tall. They might get 8 feet tall. They'll be slightly taller than me, but not much, and just lots of them, right up. And it gets hard to get through them, but animals love them. Okay, wow, 8:56. So timed that pretty well, actually. Cool. I'll be looking over Bunny now eating dried plums from the Aldi tree. Cool. Any other questions? Let's see. Okay, plums and persimmons usually are ripening at the same time. It depends on when you are. So so if you're out in the hill country, you're not going to find the plums, or you might find the Chickasaw. But yeah, the Texas persimmons, if you are on exactly the right piece of property, it's kind of the junction between the the hill country and the more northern Texas area, you might actually be able to have both the Texas persimmons and the Chickasaw plums. And yes, those would ripen at the same time. And then in East Texas, you would have the Virginia persimmons and the wild or Mexican plums, and they would also be ripening about the same time there in mid-fall. So good indicator. All right. Yeah, and one thing I haven't found much is Chickasaw plums for sale at nurseries in the Houston area. They might be available in other areas, but I have not found them in the Houston area at the Moss or Arborgate or Buchanan's, which is a bummer because I'd really like some. I don't want to dig up the ones I have, but I rearranged the backyard some, so I have a better spot for some new ones. So I'd like to try them there. Oh, and then was it Terrace talking about earlier? The pits of both the wild plums and the Chickasaw plums, they germinate really well. You can throw them in your refrigerator for a few weeks to mimic winter and then stick them outside, and a good number of them will germinate and start growing trees. Okay, 8:59. So, oops. Jane Cooper. Oops. Where is... See, the problem, I have to find there we go. Okay. So as far as Dallas area, I'm not familiar with a lot of nurseries up there. So I don't know. Okay, next week we will be having a special guest, tribe member, and she will be talking about a post-apocalyptic novel she has written, and we're going to talk about life in a post-apocalyptic Texas. described in her book. So tune in next week for that. There'll be a lot more information coming before then. Alan, pests. Yeah. So, like I said, if you water improperly, if you water in the late afternoon or evening and the water stays on the trees, they are very susceptible to fungus. There are also a number of beetles and caterpillars that go after them, which can be problematic. Really, with the domesticated plums, you want to keep a close eye on them. And then once you see any of the insects or insect damage, there are different like neem oil and things you can apply to the tree, diatomaceous earth, different environmentally friendly materials that can help control the pests and get rid of them. Okay, it is 9:01. Time to have supper, at least for me. Don't know what the rest of you are doing. Thank you again for another episode of Merriwether's World. I was your host, Dr. Mark Merriwether Vorderbruggen. Don't know if my mom and dad are still here, but hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. Love you. Hope you enjoyed the show. And also, I got to do one other thing. Don't forget to pop over to the Medicine Man shop and order your immune pill. So, and I'll just put the link here for that. And so, help out. And what, did it work? Okay, good. Yeah. So, I mean, this is my job, being the medicine man. All right. Have a great evening. Time for me to hug my family. And I will see you all tomorrow, hopefully all of you, tomorrow at the donut shop at the beginning of the world. Same place, 7:30ish to 8 a.m. in the morning. I've been starting a little early because why not? All right, everyone. Love you. Thank you all for hanging out. Hope you learned something.